Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into a really profound text to unpack a huge paradox that sits right at the heart of spiritual development. And it's this: what if the very attachment to making progress is actually the single biggest thing holding you back?
I think a lot of us have been there. Whether you're into meditation, yoga, or some other discipline, you eventually hit that wall of doubt, right? You start wondering, am I doing this right? Is any of this even working?
These questions, they're super common. And it turns out there's this ancient Buddhist text, the Maharatnakuta Sutra, that offers a pretty radical perspective that might just be the key to freeing ourselves from this whole struggle. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start with that doubt that so many of us feel. Then, we'll look at how the sutra completely flips our idea of a first aspiration on its head. Why the very notion of progress is basically an illusion, and what it really means to renounce something. And all of this leads to a kind of liberation that, surprisingly, looks a lot like not practicing at all.
All right, let's kick things off with our first section. It all begins with a question someone asks the Buddha about the very first step on the path, that initial aspiration to even start practicing.
Now, this right here, this is where things get really interesting, because it immediately challenges what we all assume. We think practice is about getting rid of our negative thoughts, right? But the great Bodhisattva Manjushri just turns that completely upside down. He says the moment greed or anger or confusion arises, that is the starting point.
And immediately, a celestial being named Sudatta jumps in with the question we're all thinking. Wait a minute. If just having a greedy thought is the starting point, doesn't that mean we're all enlightened masters already? And you know what? It's a fantastic question.
And Manjushri's answer is just brilliant. He says that only a truly enlightened being can give rise to a thought like greed in the right way, because they do it without getting stuck to it. The thought just passes right through their mind without leaving any trace, just like a bird flying through the empty sky leaves no footprints.
So here's the crucial takeaway. It's not the content of the thought that matters. It doesn't matter if it's greed or compassion. What really matters is the quality of your awareness. The real aspiration is just to watch these thoughts come and go without grabbing onto them.
Okay, so this leads us to the next really big question. If the starting point is so radically different from what we thought, what on earth does that mean for the whole idea of making progress on the path?
In a lot of spiritual traditions, we think of growth as this straight line forward, kind of like climbing these 10 stages of a bodhisattva's journey. But Manjushri, he uses this exact framework to just completely tear down the whole idea of progress itself.
He asks Sudatta a really simple question. He says, hey, can a person who's inside a magically created illusion make real progress from one part of that illusion to another? And of course, the answer is no, right? Because the illusion itself isn't solid.
And so, what he's saying is the very concept of moving from a lower stage to a higher one, well, that's just part of the big illusion we're supposed to be waking up from. It's not a ladder you're meant to climb, it's a dream you're meant to realize you're in.
Okay, so if our first step isn't what we thought, and progress is an illusion, what about all those very real physical things people do, like becoming a monk or a nun? What about renunciation?
Manjushri's logic here is just relentless. He argues that when you focus on an external act like shaving your head, you're actually making the very ideas you're trying to get past even stronger. The idea of a solid self, a me who has my hair that needs cutting, gets reinforced.
And then he takes it even further. He redefines the ultimate symbol of being a monk, the robe. And in a pretty shocking twist, he says that our biggest problems, our afflictions, those are the true robes we should be wearing.
He says that greed, that's the robe.
That anger, that's the robe too.
And yep, you guessed it, delusion is the robe. And his point is so profound. The very mental states we're always trying to escape from are the real fabric of our practice. They aren't something you can just hide or cover up with a piece of cloth. True renunciation is about wearing these states with total awareness and working with them right here and now.
So where does all this lead? Well, it brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this whole line of thinking, to the very meaning of liberation itself.
The highest goal that's described in this text isn't about gaining some new, shiny, enlightened state. No, it's about getting to this deep, unshakable understanding. They call it a kind of patience, with the truth that nothing was ever really born or created to begin with.
It's this profound insight that everything, our thoughts, our feelings, the entire world around us is kind of like a dream or a reflection in a mirror. They show up, sure, but they're temporary, and they don't have any solid, independent reality. And seeing that clearly, well, that is freedom.
And that's how the final paradox becomes crystal clear. To really truly live the spirit of the practice, you have to let go of the anxious, tight-fisted effort to hold on to it. Real discipline isn't something you force, it's something that just flows effortlessly from this deep understanding of how things are. So, this leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. What if all the things we chase after, in our jobs, in our relationships, in our own personal growth, what if they could be more genuinely realized not by trying harder, but by letting go of that desperate need to achieve them in the first place? Now that is a powerful idea to carry with you.